Schaberg, Consolidated Partners, and we're going to be going over planning for special needs with transition. We're excited to be doing that. What I do here at Workforce Solutions as a student hireability navigator is I help advertise for our VR. And what they do is they help students between the ages of 14 to 22 transition. You can get a personalized counselor who can even attend your ARDs at your school to walk alongside you and get your student prepared to explore careers, do work-based training, which we do pay for. It's nice for those students to be receiving a paycheck during the day. We do counseling for post-secondary opportunities. We do work readiness instruction and self-advocacy instruction for students. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Allison. I will be sending out a follow-up with information about resources in our community and also information to help parents in any way that they might need. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you for partnering with us today, April. It's a pleasure to be here. So Allison Schaberg here, Consolidated Planning Group. We are happy to be joining you again. If this is your first time, we're glad you're here. If you're back again, we're glad you're back for more. So today, from a housekeeping perspective, today's meeting is being recorded. We'll reference our YouTube channel throughout this presentation, and we've put links to the YouTube channel, how to reach us, how to contact us. That is in the top of the chat box, so you can find that there. We want this to be interactive. However, your videos and your audios are muted, so we can't see you or hear you. In case you're wondering, we can't see or hear anything, but we do know that you're there, and we would like you to put your questions. If you have questions that come up during this meeting, we'd love for you to put your questions in the chat box, and we're going to get to just as many as we can. April's going to read those out to me, and we'll answer, just like I said, just as many as we can. If you do have a question that didn't get answered on this meeting, and you can certainly reach out to us and ask your question otherwise. So as the owner of Consolidated Planning Group, I wear a lot of hats. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs planning firm. And so I come to you from one hat as a parent. I've got mom to four. I've got two kids with special needs that have kind of gone through this. One is transitioning, one has gone through the transition process. And so a lot of these webinars, the webinar series that we have, they live on our YouTube channel. We have a Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel where you can subscribe for free and get information on basically any topic that's going to come up today. Most of these topics, when it comes to special needs, they could have a whole webinar for them because they're so convoluted. It's so confusing. It's so convoluted that you can have a whole webinar dedicated to that one topic. And the fact of the matter is we do have webinars dedicated to those topics. So if we get on a rabbit hole today, we start talking about other things, start talking about SSI and Medicaid or special needs trust or guardianship and some of those things, there are whole webinars for that. So definitely check that out. So from a holistic planning perspective, what do we do? At Consolidated Planning Group, we are nationally certified as Social Security advisors, and we are also members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We put protection plans in place, lifetime care plan. We do transition planning. We do things such as answer those questions when people come to us and they say, I know that my child has care needs for the rest of their life, but I don't know how to plan for that financially. What happens to my child when I'm gone? What do I do? How do I need to get that set up? We can help people set up ABLE accounts. And we really help through advocacy with a lot of tools and resources that are out there and available to families that a lot of families don't know about, that can maybe make your journey just a little bit easier. So today we're talking about transitions, tips for launching your special needs teen into adulthood. And April and I were having a nice conversation because she shares she shares that she has a loved one with special needs as well, and so she's kind of walked this journey as well. But a lot of times, really, when we're thinking about transitioning, we're thinking about our kids leaving the public school. entering whatever sense of normalcy it is for their life, and that changes, as we go through this. The definition of normalcy changes, I think. But we want to make this journey a little bit easier. And honestly, what we hear every single week from parents like you is, I feel overwhelmed. I do not know where to start. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I've done some stuff, but I don't have this other stuff. Who do I even contact? How do I know that they're good? How do I know that they're not going to take advantage of me? So all of these things. So if you've had any of those feelings, you're definitely not alone. And the thing is we work with a lot of really highly intelligent people, highly educated people. And you know what? It doesn't make a difference. This stuff is hard. It's not because you're not smart. It's because the process of navigating special needs resources, how to, cross the T's and dot the I's, and how do we not lose benefits? How do we set things up? When do we call, the Social Security Administration? It's confusing and it is convoluted. So I guess what I'm saying here is give yourself a little bit of a break. It's not you. It's because the system is pretty difficult. And so for me personally, I think you have to know that, I eat, sleep, and breathe this. Professionally, personally, this is what I do. But I had kind of a unique lens that I started looking through when I started, transitioning with my older daughter and seeing just how truly difficult this is. I honestly felt angry. I felt angry that it was so difficult, and knowing what I know and doing what I do. So when you're just navigating life and navigating your daily life and challenges, it really definitely makes a difference. So when we start thinking about transition, I think one of the biggest things that we want to talk about is setting, realistic expectations. One of the things that I like to say, and he didn't coin this, but he stole it from somebody wonderful, I'm sure, is they are where they are. They're not behind. They are where they are. They're not behind. And because I think that the world that we live in is we're always taught to look at, like, are they behind? I mean, it starts early. You have a baby, and then when did they sit up, and when did they say their first word, and when did they crawl, and when did they walk, and when did they, and it's all this, the comparisons start early, and we start comparing to see when did they learn to read and know all their colors, and there's so many different things that we start the comparison, that it really, really starts early. But I think we just have to think about our loved one as an individual, the individual that they are, and that they are exactly who they are and where they are right in this point in time, and that they are where they are. So we want to understand those diagnoses, challenges, and strengths. We want to meet them where they are, because the reality of it is, just like us, when we have been faced with challenges or things that we simply weren't ready for, maybe we failed, maybe we didn't succeed, we weren't ready for that, we needed some additional training, additional support, there's so many different things. So think about a traditional path, think about a non-traditional path, depending on, where your loved one is. What is their disability? Is it an intellectual disability? Do they have learning disabilities? Or do they have more of a physical disability, and their mind and their brain and their intelligence is working beautifully? Whenever we have a number of people on these webinars, it's all across the board of the families that are, coming to these meetings. One of the things that I hear a lot is that we're not there yet. So we've got a kid, they're about 18, maybe they're over 18, and we're not necessarily there yet. We see this with high functioning autism, ADHD, a number of other diagnoses that we see this with. So when we're talking about keeping an open mind, consider delaying a driver's license. Some kids will drive, some kids won't. What you should know is that there are disability driving agencies out there that are designed to teach behind the wheel to drivers with a disability. So look for those for your kids. If you're thinking that, hey, my kid really does want to drive, I don't know if they're going to be safe, Your local hospitals also will have programs where you can do testing. It's the same type of testing that they do with stroke patients to see if a stroke patient would be eligible to drive again after a stroke. And it's really comprehensive. So if you've been wondering, that might be something you want to look at. But we're thinking about trade school, community college, of course, Texas Workforce Commission, vocational rehab. If you want to go to work, of course, we look at the summer earn and learn and some of the pre-ET stuff, and April could talk about all of that stuff all day long. But there's registered apprenticeships, reduced college course load, might be the university. Those are all things that we're thinking about, and I think that those are all things that should be on the table. It also might be a tradition program, an 18-plus program at the school. April, do we have a question?
Yes, we do. Speaking of differences, one of our questions from one of our people on are, what are some tips for homeschooling family in transition and planning for adulthood for a child who's homeschooled?
So I think that some of those are similar, and it's interesting that you just put that in the chat box, because April and I were just talking about our homeschooling experience, because I know that my two girls were homeschooled. We're kind of past that, past that phase. But I think what we're going to be talking about today will be applicable for whether you're in public school or private school, an 18-plus program, a transition program. I think that it will cross over in there as well. So when we're thinking of finding a good fit, schools, college, extracurricular activities, career path, work setting. Again, this should be customized to your child and their unique needs, and what is it that they will thrive and be happy with. Is this a smaller school? Are they overwhelmed by crowds? Is it a smaller school? Is it is it a particular work setting that they're working with their hands? I mean, there's so many things, and there's testing out there for these types of things that will, even for a family or a student that doesn't really know where they fit, that will help point you in the right direction for that as well. So what I want to talk about, and this is real important. So in the public school, private school, whatever accommodations you have in place in your home school, accommodations are a thing. It's a buzzword. It's a buzzword that we hear all the time. Our kids have accommodations for their disability to help kind of close the gap on that disability, to give them the supports that are necessary for them to succeed in education. Okay, so you guys have heard of IEPs and 504s. If you haven't heard of an IEP or a 504, there's complete webinars on that as well. This is how you go about getting these accommodations in the school. You may have an ARD meeting. So if you've got kindergartners or first graders, and these terms are all, you've not heard these terms before. Those are terms, those are things that you will become familiar with and kind of get these accommodations set up. But what you got to know when we're transitioning is that these accommodations that you have in place in the public school, for your inconvenience, they do not transfer to the university or the college. So what that means is that you have to apply for accommodations at the university or college level to basically get the same supports and services that you were once getting before. So the other thing that I found frustrating when we were going through this process with my daughter is that none of the colleges or university are singing out of the same hymnal and songbook, okay? Their rules of engagement, what they require, when they require it, how you request it, how you get accommodations are different for every single university and college. So I found that, like, why can't we just have a checklist and it's good for all of them? I was trying to simplify things here, but it didn't really work that way. And so what I would say is, as you're thinking about schools, one of the first places I would think about is researching their offices of disability. It could be disability services, office of disability. Sometimes they call it ODS, office of disability services. They have some different names, but the general premise is the Office of Disability. Excuse me. You want to see what their requirements are to request accommodations. Most of them are requiring updated testing within the last 3 to 5 years. I've seen some schools be a little bit more relaxed on this because of the pandemic. Testing was harder to get. Where do you get this testing? Well, sometimes, very infrequently, the public school does this testing. Sometimes this level of testing is done at the public school level. It is done on the private basis where you maybe your psychiatrist or your psychologist office does some of this testing as private pay. Sometimes insurance covers it, sometimes it doesn't. We've also seen this testing done through the Workforce Commission, through the vocational rehab program, because, and April, you can chime in on this, but basically when your child's in that VR program, they're looking to see what are the impediments to employment. They're not just listening to the kid or listening to you. They're doing some testing and some assessments to find out what those impediments to employment are so they can close the gap on that. So I've personally seen where they've done IQ testing. I've seen some of the neuropsych testing. I've seen vocational evaluations done. And so if your child is in that program, that may be one way that you do have that testing or can get that testing and not pay $3,500 to $5,000 for it. Do you want to comment on that, April?
Yeah, I will comment on that. In certain cases, our counselors do help provide that testing, and they are an excellent resource to walk alongside of families, whether in public school or in private school, because they also provide counseling and they refer out for needed testing as needed in order to get kids from a stage of transition to employment and whatever training is needed in between. And they are an excellent resource for those tests sometimes.
April, we have entire webinars on vocational rehab and as well as the Summer Earn and Learn program and the pre-employment training services. And I did see a question in the chat box. And the bottom line is a lot of our kids are not college bound. Maybe they will later. Maybe they never will. We don't know. But I would say from one parent to another that's had kids on the program, yeah, I think it's an excellent program. So what can they do? And how can you tap into state and federally funded resources? These programs have big budgets. They need to spend their money so they continue to get their money. So they want to partner with you. They have, supports in place to help your child. So I would say if your child is definitely not college bound and we're looking at some other options, we're looking at, job placement in the future. But what I love about this program is it starts, and April mentioned this earlier and probably slipped through the cracks, but age 14. So you can start, and it doesn't mean that your kids are going to work at age 14. It means that they're getting involved and they're starting this program and they're finding what those impediments are, and they're putting training in place to close those gaps. So as they move closer to age 16 or whenever they are ready to actually go to work, that they've been worked with all along, not just at 16 or 18 or whatever. So I say the sooner you can get started with it, the better. I'm a fan. So anyway, a couple of things that I want to make sure you guys understand is SAT and ACT exams. You also want to check the college or university to see what they require for SAT and ACT. Some colleges have relaxed this a bit because of COVID. Some haven't. Also, if your child plans on going in through the community college, they're going to go to the community college first. You don't have to take the SAT or ACT. Don't even put them through the stress. It's completely unnecessary. There is something in the state of Texas called the TSI, Texas Success Initiative. April, if you'll put that in the chat box, Texas Success Initiative. That is their ability to pass reading, writing, and math, and it will determine on whether or not they can take 4 credit classes at the college level. There are non-credit classes at the college level that can help them close the gap in learning on the college level, so you can look at those as well. So think about updated testing every 3 to 5 years. And the other thing that I want you guys to be aware of, a little secret that a lot of people don't know, a lot of families that we've seen have testing. They've had testing that have been done repeatedly in years past, but maybe not in the last 3 to 5 years. If your child has a diagnosis that basically doesn't change, it doesn't get worse, it doesn't get better, it's the same, and you have a relationship with your psychologist or psychiatrist or your primary care physician, if you can, and you have a long relationship with them, if you can get them to write a letter of saying, that they've reviewed the past testing, they're in agreement with this, they're in agreement with the accommodations that have been requested, nothing has changed. Basically a letter from a physician with outdated testing, I've seen a lot of places take. It's worth asking. Nobody ever asks. But when they do ask, they say yes. And so you could just save yourself $3,500 to $5,000 on the testing. So anyway, FERPA. What is a FERPA? It's basically needed on the college level to release information. And this is true even if your child is 17 and entering college. So there's a debate on whether or not to have a FERPA in place, because we're trying to move our children towards adulting, towards independence and things like that. What I found with my daughter that transitioned, she needed help. There was several times over the course of 4 years, a lot less than the last 2 years, a lot more in the first 2 years, of where she needed help with the Office of Disability, or she was having an issue with a teacher, she was having an issue with just an issue that she needed kind of some of behind the scenes help. And really the only behind the scenes help that I aided with was working with the Office of Disability and her, and then they got involved and helped her navigate that. So FERPA is important. One thing that I do recommend here too is, folks, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. This is good for any families that are not going to have guardianship. Power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney for 18 and older kids that are going away to college is a good best practice. If they get hurt, if they are away at school, if they have a mental health crisis, you have these documents in place, then you're going to be able to get information. And if you don't, then it could be very difficult. So don't run into that. Okay, April, do we have some questions in the chat box?
We have not had one in the last few seconds, no.
Okay, perfect. I just, I see that you're putting the stuff in the chat box, and I appreciate that. Reasonable accommodation is required if it does not pose undue hardship. You can read more about that at the Department of Labor, the Job Accommodation Network. There's a lot of information on that. There's even through the VR program, disability disclosure, how to ask for accommodations on the job. Those are all kinds of training and services that are out there for that. Okay, so here are some ideas. And one thing I felt like was a mad woman when I was doing this with my daughter, of like, where are we going and what are we doing and what schools have good disability programs? So the way I navigated this, basically, I looked for schools that had the degree path that we were interested in. So maybe it's a certificate, maybe it's a degree, it doesn't matter. Look for schools that have what you want. Some of the programs that are certificate programs, they might have like the hospitality industry. They might have the food and beverage industry. They might have a horticulture industry. Those are examples of some certificate programs that you can look at. But we looked at the degree path that we were interested in. We narrowed it down by the Texas schools that offered that degree path. Then what we did is we narrowed it down by those schools, and we started interviewing and researching their offices of disability. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. So anyway, do yourself a favor and find a school that has a great office of disability. So that is a valid suggestion, very, 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 very important. But here are some educational options post-high school that we know of them. Most of them are in Texas. I see Lynn University Metamorphosis program on there. Lynn University is actually in Florida, and they've got They're known for working with kids with disabilities. There's a lot of schools all over the country, but here are just some of the ones and some of the programs that we know are available out there. But what you got to do is you got to check out these programs, research them early. They all have great information on their websites about their programs. But some of them don't have big slots available. They don't have like just endless enrollment. They might have 4 slots for next year. They might have 10 slots. So you're gonna want to find that out, and you're gonna want to know, when do their applications open? When do they close? What do you got to do to apply? Who is their audience? How much does it cost? All of those things are the research that I suggest doing for these specific programs. Some of these programs on this list are certificate programs. Others have 4-year degree, 2-year and 4-year degree programs. Some of them are on the list because we just know that they have a great Office of Disability. And so it might be, traditional learning with great supports that you can basically win there. So another place that I want to talk about is there are some places like there's CLE. This is something that you guys may have heard of before, the College Living Experience. And basically you pay for that out of pocket, plus you pay for their school, whether it's community college or the 4-year university. And your student lives at CLE and they're learning life skills, independent skills. They're getting help and support and basically transition support while they are also maybe taking a couple of classes at the school or the university. Maybe you start slow, you start with one, and then you kind of grow from there. It's up to you. But Bloom Consulting is something that you guys should check out. And I know that Bloom Consulting is actually I don't even know what you call them, April, but like they're a certified company that the vocational rehab uses. I don't know what they're approved and they're on the list. Okay. So Bloom Consulting is pretty good. You should check out their website, because they do a lot of stuff, not just this. And we could have a whole webinar about Bloom because they do a great job. But they have a campus connection program that's basically designed to go alongside of your student that's going to the university. And it's kind of like this advocacy, mentorship. It's a wraparound program to help them succeed at the university level. There is also another program, the name is escaping, Trios is another program at the university level that is designed. It is paid for by the university, or I don't even know, maybe it's federal. I don't know. I think it's everywhere. But it is really designed to support kids first year. It could be first year college kids with disabilities. It could be first generation college students. Trios is one program, but Bloom Consulting is one that you could hire if you're part of VR and it's part of your education plan. It's possible that their services could be included in your plan and paid for by VR. And I'm not saying that VR pays for everything. I'm saying it has to be part of your plan, and your counselor will work with you on that. But this is $1,000 a month. And again, this takes you out of the equation a little bit. We're trying to move them more towards independence. We're trying to be less of us and more of them, but with some coaching along the way. Because I don't know, last time I checked, my teenagers don't really want my opinion that much. They take it from a perfect stranger. It'd be better. So anyway, and sometimes the perfect strangers understand them more. It's the tricky teenage years. But I think what I've seen is that these kids work well. I know that they've got programs across the country, I want to say in Nevada, but they also have this program and it's doing well at Sam Houston State University. So check out their website. They have residential living. They have the consulting services. They do testing, vocational evaluation. So say you're not in vocational rehab and you want to get a vocational evaluation for your student. The mom that said that they had a student that may go to work and not go to school, maybe a vocational evaluation is a great idea if that's your plan, right? So we can know what those impediments are. They do these too as well. So just a thought there. Any questions so far, April?
No.
Okay, perfect. How do I get started with special needs planning? First, first and foremost, I think it's really important to understand the difference between a special needs planner and a special needs attorney. The truth is we work hand in hand and we work very closely. I'm not an attorney and I don't play one on TV, but I am a special needs planner and we work closely with special needs attorneys. So what I simplify, because people are confused, they call attorneys all the time, ask them to do what we do, the analysis, the future care cost estimates, help with SSI and Medicaid, when to pull the trigger on their Social Security benefits, all of those things. They call the attorney and ask them that. That's what we do. And then they call me and they say, I need guardianship. Can you do guardianship? I need a special needs trust. Can you set that up for me? And that's where the attorney does. That's what the attorney does. And we partner very closely and we know what you need, but think of it as we're the money, we're the resources, we're the when and how and what to do to make sure that your kid is not going to lose state and federally funded benefits in the future, how to make sure that we're going to be able to fund their care in the future if they have care needs, past 18, past 22, maybe it's their whole life. We're the money and they're the paper. So the legal documents, those are all things that you need to be thinking about. But the legal documents aren't even worth the paper that they're written on if there's not a plan. If there's not a plan in place and how we're going to fund it and what we're going to do. So it's an important component. So work with a special needs planner to help you formulate a plan. What I would say is your situation is specialized. So work with a specialist. There are a lot of financial planners out there. Very, very few of them have any background at all in special needs. And that is important to your journey because we have these kids that most of our kids didn't qualify for SSI and Medicaid. Maybe they were getting MDCP, maybe they were getting a Medicaid waiver, something along those lines. But when they turn 18, all of that changes. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But when you're working with a planner that doesn't understand special needs, they can accidentally have you have money in the wrong buckets that can cause your child to disqualify or not qualify for these benefits. And so that's why I kind of just use the analogy, like if you have a heart problem, you're going to go see a cardiologist. You're not going to go to a podiatrist. You're not going to your generalist primary care physician. And it's the same thing with your specialized situation with special needs. So getting started, we want you to gather all the necessary planning documents. This is what you already have in place. This is what benefits you might have through your employers, group, health, life, disability, any 401ks, 403bs, any pension plans, any wills, trust, or documents, that's guardianship, anything that you already have in place. It's going to be your Social Security statements. You, and if you're married, your spouse's Social Security statement. You're going to gather all of those documents together because those are documents that we're going to need to help you formulate a plan and put those future care cost estimates in place. One of the biggest issues that families face, all families face, at one point we need to retire in this lifetime. And from a numbers perspective, we can expect to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. That's a long time. And most people need to save money over a 25 to 35 year career to draw from that money later in retirement. But when we have a special needs loved one that's going to have care needs the rest of their life, not just the rest of ours, that's almost, if you're married, it's almost like a third retirement bucket. So careful planning has to happen. The sooner you get started on that, the more likely that your plan is going to be fully funded. The special needs trust is going to be fully funded. We want you to develop a letter of intent. We have a template for this that we've created. It's a PDF and it's long. I don't even remember how many pages it is. It's at least 19 pages long. But it is a form fillable letter of intent. And then basically, I call this a family love letter. Your mom, your dad, you eat, sleep, and breathe this kid. You know what makes them tick. You know what makes them fall apart. You know where everything is. You know their diagnoses, what medications they take, everything, their religious preferences, what schools they've attended, names, address, and phone numbers of doctors, the names of their medications, all this stuff. I could just go on and on and on, as you can imagine, for 19 pages. Anyway, what I want to tell you is you know this stuff. Other people don't. If you are gone or incapacitated, who else knows this stuff? And what I found is sometimes even in your own household, the other spouse doesn't know this. And it's not because they're bad. Maybe one person's a caregiver, one person, really works, and the caregiver at home is handling these types of things while he's handling, or he or she is handling money coming in and those types of things. So it's not wrong, but just know that when things happen and a person is either gone from this earth or incapacitated, somebody else needs to know these things, especially for our kids that are nonverbal. So having a letter of intent and updating it every couple of years, I would say twice a year is what we say to look at it. It's an important thing to share with your family. And of course, we want you to formulate your vision of how you hope things will look for your special needs child. But I want to say more importantly, how you hope things will look for your future in your retirement. The journey is basically, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's never ending for families that have kids with care needs for the rest of their life. It's never ending. So we don't just sail off into the sunset, into retirement, enjoy the grandkids. We still got kids living with us, and some of their needs are great. And we get older and we're tired. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Sometimes I'm tired. I'm a tired mom sometimes. So anyway, I really want you to think about how you hope your future will look. What does that look like? How do you get respite? How do you have time? You worked your whole life. How do you have time to do some of the things that you hoped that you would do in retirement? Is it traveling? Whatever it is, I don't have a crystal ball on what everybody's mindset is on that. But thinking about that, because as parents, what we do is we're always thinking about the kid, always about next and the kid and how can I help this kid and how can I get him to the next level and how can I do all of these things. And a lot of times what we do is as families, as parents, we put ourselves on the back burner, and it might not matter that much at 40 or 50 or 55. You start getting in your 60s and 70s, it matters, and that's going to take a toll. So that is really, really important there. How are we on questions, April?
We have not gotten any more.
Okay, perfect. All right, so some of the things that we got to think about is who's going to care for my child when I'm gone. Developing a future care plan now is going to answer these questions. I say consider touring facilities such as Brookwood, Marbridge, Daymark Living. There's so many. We have a list of them. We have lists that take waivers. We have lists that don't take waivers that are private pay. Some of these waiting lists are quite long. It could be 5 years or longer. Some are not on a waiting list. But think about this now. Where are we going? Are they in the 18 plus program? Will they stay in that program to age 21 or 22? What is the plan? Are they going to move to a transition program post high school? All of these things are things that are worth considering. Is the transition program with the public high school good? Do you want to do that one, or are you considering a private transition program? So there are both public and private transition programs, public high school 18 plus programs, and then outside transition programs. And so when I say consider touring facilities, sometimes people get their feelings hurt and they think I'm saying, how can we put your loved one in a residential living facility? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that they do have respite programs. They do have residential programs. They have day programs and transition programs. And what we are trying to avoid in this transition process is that your child leaves the school and they come home and they do nothing. They have very little interaction with others. They're not involved in activities, and they do nothing. And that basically, if you have no plan, that's what happens. That is what happens. And so what I say is it doesn't hurt to tour these facilities, to know what your options are out there, to put your name on the waiting list. Having your name on the waiting list gives you the right of refusal when your name comes up. Just because you come up on the list doesn't mean you have to accept it, but it gives you the right to say no or yes. So I say that that's a really good idea. And then what about families? They say, I have nobody. We want you to make really careful considerations before naming siblings as a future caregiver. And I always just say, and April and I were talking about it because we both have a mom to four. They have hopes and dreams. Your other children, your other neurotypical children, they have hopes and dreams just like you did. What do they want to do? Do they want to graduate college? Do they want to buy a house? Do they want to buy a car? Do they want to get married, have children? The list goes on and on and on, the American dream, right? Your kids have that too. And so when we say make careful considerations, a lot of parents say, well, my daughter wants to take care of her sibling. Some people say yes because it's obligatory. Some people truly say yes because they do love that sibling, but over time, that burden is more than what they can bear. It's affecting their life, their ability to work, their relationships, and other things like that. And so what we like to see is that that the siblings are in a loving relationship with your loved one with special needs, but not necessarily in the weeds with all of the day-to-day all of the day-to-day caregiving responsibilities, because it's a little bit much. How are we on questions?
Well, I think you're doing a great job because I haven't gotten any more. I think you're covering what must be on people's minds.
Okay, yes. And then, so yeah, I think that that's the big thing.
We did get one question. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
With the fluctuating cost of care, how can we assure that everything is financially covered after life? How can we assure that plans are carried out?
So that is a great question. So number one is the future care cost estimate that we were talking about earlier. It's really important to estimate those costs and plan for that. And doing the overall financial plan, we do the overall financial plan too. That's a kind of a door a family can walk through. But we are able to kind of say, how much do we need for retirement? How much are we going to need for future care? And your special needs trust is going to highlight how and when those distributions from the trust are going to come out. We figure out how do we close the gap and make sure that there's enough funding for that special needs trust. And we set that up. And then how it comes out and who administers the trust is set up by the special needs trust. There are such things in trust as trust protectors. That's some language in the trust. There are also such things as professional trustees. Cadence Bank is one, Texas Bank is another. I mean, there's professional trustees with some of the local banks that have special needs divisions. So if you're fresh out of people in your family that would be able to run a trust, or you don't trust them to run a trust, there's a lot of factors. There's the trust factor of, do I trust this person with large sums of money? And then there's it's the skill factor. So you might have a loved one that you trust immensely, but they just don't really have the capacity to run a trust, right? So a lot of people, and especially if trusts are, $1 million or more, 500,000 to $1 million, we see a lot of professional trustees. Some of these facilities also, this is one thing that as you're thinking about some of these places and doing your research and homework on this, if you email us, we can send you a list of other places as well. This is just to name a few. We don't work for them. They don't work for us. These are just places that we know, we've toured, and they feel good. I just have to tell you, you just go there and you think, oh my gosh, that's going to be horrible. It's a residential facility or whatever. It's not horrible. It's really wonderful. And what you see is that the residents are happy. They have meaning. They have importance. They are needed. They have jobs. They have community and friends. And it's pretty awesome. So, but some of these facilities will be willing to be successor guardian of your loved one. So it's important to know, will you take successor guardianship? And I say this frankly, and I don't mean to, I'm not hurting anybody's feelings, but can my loved one live there and die there? If we go there, if they move in, can they age in place in your facility? As they get older and they become sicker, can they stay there? Do they have to move? Can you become successor guardian of my loved one, if I die? Those are some good questions, and each of the facilities are different in what they do with that in particular.
Allison, we have another question. What would happen if an institution who is a trustee files bankruptcy or liquidates their assets? What would happen to the legal contracts? Thank you.
That is a great question, and I honestly don't know the answer, but I can say I've been in the business for 30 plus years, and I've not seen that happen, and I hope that hasn't happened to you. So banks in themselves, there are guarantee associations, there's FDIC, there's different insurance that is involved with banks, whether you're with a bank or whether you have money in securities or various brokerage accounts and things like that. There are some safety procedures in place and insurance procedures in place. But luckily, like I said, I have never, ever seen that happen. I do see another, I see a question too. I think we had a person that put a question back to the person that just asked the question. So I'll let them chat about that. Okay, so how is my child's care going to be funded? First, we want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. For the sake of time, we don't have time to go deep and wide with this. When we're talking about state and federally funded programs, we're talking about SSI and Medicaid. We're talking about Social Security, Disability, and Medicare. One of the biggest confusions out there is SSI. People think that SSI is Social Security. It's not. Social Security is supplemental security income. It is for the indigent and disabled, okay? To qualify for SSI and Medicaid, it's a means-based program. And basically, if you have more than $2,000 to your name, you're not going to qualify for SSI, even if you're disabled, even though you're disabled. So when you have a minor child, you have a child that maybe has not been getting SSI all this time. Maybe it makes you mad because they are disabled and you know it, and you can't believe they're denied. But they're denied rightfully so, because when they're a minor, they're covered under your assets and income. But once they turn 18, it's based off of their assets and income. So what you need to know is if you've got a child that is transitioning, they should not have more than $2,000 in their name. No more than $2,000 in their name outside of an ABLE account or a special needs trust. You can have more money than $2,000, but it has to be in the confines of a special needs trust or an ABLE account. What you also need to know is if your child is already getting SSI and Medicaid, that once they turn 18, you do need to schedule and you need to re-up this with the Social Security Administration, because they'll probably unload them. It's not a natural progression. They should send you a letter, should tell you to schedule an appointment, but you should schedule an appointment to keep things going when they turn 18 if they're already getting it. If they're not already getting it, if they got more than $2,000 in their name, how do you move the money? We can help you with that. We can help to get that moved to an ABLE account. That is a legal move, moving the money from from the child's name to an ABLE account. That is a legitimate move. Trying to hide the money is not a legitimate move, and they'll find it. So let us help you figure that out if you got more money than $2,000 in the kid's name. If your child is not getting, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's another question, but I'll let you finish.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No, what I was going to say is if your child's not getting SSI and Medicaid, you can schedule your appointment with your local, not national, your local Social Security office for the month that they turn 18. Most of these Social Security offices are really backed up. They really just opened up April 7th in Texas. They've been closed for 2 years, 2 long years, only taking phone calls. And they get more calls in a day than what they can ever handle. So getting through to them is like beating your head against the wall. But anyway, call them 3 months in advance, schedule your appointment to apply for SSI and Medicaid for the month that your child turns 18. So that's good advice. Social Security, Disability, and Medicare. Social Security is a worker-based program. As workers, we pay into the Social Security system. So one day when we retire, that we can turn on our Social Security. Or if we become disabled, we can turn on our Social Security. After 2 years, you're basically over 65, you get Medicare right away, but under 65, you're eligible for Medicare if you're disabled after 2 years. When our children's disability started prior to age 22, most people don't know this, but they're qualified as a disabled adult child under a parent's record. A lot of our kids will never work. They're never going to have a work record, a Social Security record. They get SSI and Medicaid over here on the left-hand side. It's a different program than Social Security, and because they're not going to work, they don't pay into the system. They don't have Social Security, but the disabled adult child, now called childhood disability benefits, basically is going to make your disabled adult child eligible for 50% of your record when you either retire on Social Security or go on disability benefits through the Social Security Administration. Your child will be eligible for 50% of your record. So for example, if you turn on your Social Security and you're getting $4,000 a month, your disabled adult child whose disability started prior to age 22 will be eligible for $2,000 a month. At that time, they're going to switch over from SSI to Social Security or Social Security disability. They'll keep their Medicaid, and in 2 years, they'll be eligible for Medicare. So that's a whole mouthful. We have an entire webinar on this. And again, we're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, so we can help you. And there is a one-off for every single person that is on this webinar today. There is a one-off and a stump the chump question for Social Security. We can help you with that. Let's go to the questions, April.
Okay, the next question we've got is, where can I locate a list of various waivers and when to apply for eligibility?
So we do have a waiver webinar on our YouTube channel that's in the chat box. We do waivers. I don't know if we have one scheduled this month, but we do waiver talks on a regular basis, and we have all of the waivers in our waiver presentation. How to get on the list, the interest list. So there are your local intellectual disability authority, whether you call it a LIDA or a LIDA, I don't even know, but local intellectual disability authority is where you are going to get on the HCS, Texas Home Living Community First Choice list. Then there is a phone number that you call to get on the class interest list and MDCP and the DBMD, deaf, blind, multiple disability waivers. But it's all on there, and there's links, there's clickable links in those presentations. And again, you can reach out. We can send you the slides of the past presentation, or you can find that on the YouTube channel.
Okay, the next question I have is, if I am an SSI rep payee, do I need to include documentation and planning relinquishing my role and recommending the appointed person to be the new rep payee?
There is an issue with that. So I know what you're talking about. Like if something happens, I've seen issues, and I can't go deep and wide on that right this second, but I have seen issues where people were like maybe living in a group home and trying to get that reassigned to where the people there could help them with their SSI. It's just depending on how you want to do that. But there can be a reassignment, and there should be a reassignment. And when there's not, and a person passes away or becomes incapacitated, they could lose their benefits for a while until it gets worked out. And usually Social Security time is 3 to 6 months. So your idea of fast and my idea of fast is not exactly how it happens. The Social Security, and that's fast. 3 to 6 months is fast. I've seen it be years. So that is an important component to think about.
Okay, our next question is, what about programs like HCS? Do they phase out at 18 years old? My understanding is that some programs are for life based on their disability.
Most of the programs are for life. I mean, Star Kids, Medicaid, Star Kids, medically dependent, fragile children, they age out of those, but they graduate into the other programs, and the other programs are for life. Okay.
I believe that is our questions at this time.
Okay. Perfect. And so for the sake of time and ending on time, so the ABLE account, again, entire presentations on the ABLE account, but the ABLE account is under 529A. You can have $16,000 a year into an ABLE account and an additional $12,880 if your loved one is working, but the disability did have to start prior to age 26. We can help folks get an ABLE account set up. We have some preferences of ones that we like better than others. And our reasoning behind that is some of them are easier to deal with and get money in and out of than others. And so we'll be happy to chat with you on that. And of course, the special needs trust, that is going to be set up by an attorney. Again, with the special needs and your situation being specialized, all attorneys aren't created equally. Yes, they all go to law school and they're all highly intelligent and they had to, go through those processes, but they're not necessarily nuanced and special needs. So we do, we do make recommendations all across the state for attorneys that do specifically work with special needs. That's what they do. They eat, sleep, and breathe that. So we are not fans of do-it-yourselfer legal documents in your specialized situation. And we're also not fans of my neighbor, the contract attorney, or my neighbor, the tax attorney helps me do my special needs trust, because what we find is there are a lot of rules that are required by the Social Security Administration of POMs of what's supposed to be in these documents. And what we see is sometimes they're often missed and your documents are wrong. So on an ABLE account, I'm going to kind of skip over this, but because I kind of hit the highlights of the $16,000 a year, but the beneficiary is the account owner. And the cool thing about this account is it does grow tax-free. So when do I need a special needs trust and guardianship? A special needs trust is going to preserve benefit eligibility while providing resources for your special needs child, and it's not going to make them lose their benefits. Guardianship can be applied for 6 months, 6 months prior to the child turning 18. In the state of Texas, there is partial guardianship for some of our families that say we're not there yet. But anyway, there is also something called supported decision-making. And these attorneys that are specialized can help you walk through what might be the best thought for you. It's not always just a slam dunk that everybody needs guardianship. There are a lot of families that truly do need guardianship. There's a lot of other ones that can get by with power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, et cetera. So again, we want to have a qualified attorney preserve these documents. One thing that I just wanted to mention for our kids that aren't there yet, there are, you can look at some gap year programs. This particular gap program, it is in Massachusetts, but it's called Dynamy. It's an internship year. So these, think high functioning autism, ADHD kids that maybe they're just not quite there yet, but we're still hopeful and optimistic. That keyword, hopeful and optimistic. Look at some of these other gap year programs. They're really designed to help build their independent living skills and help get them ready for higher education. So these are some of the things that we have kind of talked about. These are things that should be on your special needs planning radar. And basically, we have webinars on every single one of these topics. If I've said something today that you're like, oh my gosh, I need help with this, certainly reach out. Or if you want to go deeper and wider because you've got deep questions as it relates specifically to you and your family and what you've got going on with your loved one, certainly reach out and we can definitely help you with that. April, do we have any additional questions?
We just have one last comment about, can you share with participants about F2FN, because we can help with SSI and Medicaid waiver? I don't know what that is myself.
Let me see that question. Bear with me. Family to family network is what yeah, Inger, yes, okay. Yes, so Family to Family Network is an organization. They're in the greater Houston area, but they do work all across the state, and they're a tremendous resource in helping you find things, navigate things, learn about things. They can definitely help with SSI and Medicaid waivers. They have got a great group of ladies down there that work, and I've met all of them, and they're all very, very wonderful. So check out Family to Family Network, and if you want to put that in the chat box, that maybe a link to that, Inger. That way everybody can kind of see. Put your website in there so they can copy and paste that, so they have that available to them as well. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. We are definitely friends with Family to Family and have loved working with them, and they have been helpful in connecting families. Like waivers, for instance, there are such things as crisis diversion waivers. That's a whole nother ball game, but they've been helpful in connecting the dots and helping people get some of these crisis diversion waivers. We have worked with that as well. So anyway, they're a wealth of knowledge, and you'll be glad that you found them. I always say I tend to be this voice of Consolidated Planning Group, but I work on a collaborative team, and not pictured are 4 other staff members. But I just, we work on a collaborative team at Consolidated Planning Group, and we definitely look forward to serving and meeting your needs. All of our consultations are free. So if you want to chat further, you need a future care cost estimate, you need that Social Security analysis, you need help figuring out the future, reach out to us, because we can definitely help you. And we want to learn a little bit more about your journey, kind of where you've been and where you hope to be going in the future. And we're certainly going to help you get there. So I've got 102. I went over. I'll take one more question if we have it.
We don't. We do have one panelist or person that had said they can't see any of the links. And I did put a message in there that we will be both doing follow-up emails from Workforce Solutions and Consolidated Planning. And they should be able to get in touch with us through those to get any additional information that they need.
Yes, that sounds great. And this QR code here, this takes us we have an electronic calendar. So if you want to get on our calendar, you want to schedule an appointment, you can use that link. Again, we're going to send you an email today with a copy of today's slides and a recording of today's presentation. So what I would like to say is just thank you so much for everyone that has taken the time to be here with us today. If I can be of additional assistance to you going forward, if you've got challenges with Social Security and issues there, certainly reach out. We can definitely help.
Okay. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks, April. Everyone have a great afternoon. Take care.
Bye.